Hearing will come to order. Today, the committee will discuss the growing number of ransomware attacks, which are increasingly disrupting our economy and our lives. Today's hearing is the first ever full committee hearing of the Judiciary Committee on Ransomware. Marks the first congressional testimony this year by the Justice Department and FBI on this threat. Majority Leader Schumer asked Senate committees to review how the agencies under their jurisdiction are responding to the ransomware threat. Ranking Member Grassley also requested today's hearing, and we consulted with his staff on choosing the witness panel. We'll hear from a panel of experts from the Department of Justice, the FBI, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, aka CISA, I believe, and the Secret Service. They will discuss the scope of the threat and what the agencies are doing to prevent it. They'll also provide guidance on best practices on how businesses and organizations can protect themselves. Before we get started, I'd like to turn to a brief video that gives us a sense of the ransomware threat.
Warning. Warning. Security breach. Security breach.
Ransomware attacks have increased in both scope and sophistication in the last year.
Ransomware encrypts a computer network's data to hold it hostage and then will only give the digital decryption key to unlock it for a price.
The average payment climbed from a few $1,000s in 2018 to more than $230,000.
A ransomware attack on Colonial Pipeline forced the 5,500-mile pipeline to shut down for 6 days, spurring a run on gasoline along parts of the East Coast.
Now they're attacking our meat supply.
JBS says units in Australia and North America were hit over the weekend by what the company is calling an organized cyber attack on its information system.
Hospitals are being targeted by hackers.
Ransomware attacks are rampant, freezing computer systems for everything from a meat processor to hospitals and even schools.
These attacks are increasing in frequency, victim losses are skyrocketing, and hackers are shifting their targets away from data-rich companies to providers of key public needs.
In 2020, professional and public service and manufacturing were the three industries that were hit the hardest, followed closely by healthcare, technology, and finance. A ransomware attack may have also claimed its first life after taking a hospital offline.
Ransomware is the #1 cybersecurity threat that we all face today.
Ransomware and digital extortion pose a national security and an economic security threat to the United States.
Warning. Warning. Security breach.
It's about more than money and inconvenience. The harm of ransomware can affect real lives. An example, on October 28th of last year, an oncology nurse named Colleen Cargill was preparing a patient for a chemotherapy infusion when she made an unsettling discovery. She couldn't log into her computer. Every time she typed in her credentials, the system would boot her out. She tried logging in from a backup computer. That didn't work either. Instead, she was greeted by a red circle with a diagonal line drawn through it. At that moment, she realized that her hospital, the largest medical system in the state of Vermont, had been infiltrated. The network had been shut down. The hackers behind the attack were holding the hospital's data hostage, which meant Colleen and her colleagues couldn't access patient data for their cancer patients. They had to try to recreate patient chemotherapy protocols from memory and copies of old faxes. The hospital's electronic medical system would remain offline for nearly a month. Colleen told the New York Times those weeks were the worst of her life, and she's not alone. Colleen and her patients are just a few of the many Americans who've been victimized by ransomware attacks. Nearly every organization and industry is vulnerable, from hospitals, school districts, local governments, nonprofits, businesses large and small. Here's how it works. Hackers break into your computer system, lock up your data, demand a ransom payment, often through untraceable cryptocurrency for the return of the data. Though any person or entity can be targeted in a ransomware attack, it's been estimated that small businesses make up over half of the victims. And these attacks can have permanent damage. Last year, it took an average of 9 months for a business to fully recover from a ransomware attack. Even the biggest and most profitable companies in the world are at risk. Earlier this year, we remember the cybercrime sentiment knocking out Colonial Pipeline, the largest pipeline operator in the United States. That shutdown sparked a nationwide panic that had customers waiting in line at gas stations for hours, and the incident brought the ransomware attack into plain view. They're becoming more frequent, more destructive, and the tools needed to commit them are easily accessible. Last year, global ransom payments reached $350 million. A recent New Yorker piece talked about the average payment for ransomware. 2018, average payment $7,000. 2019, $41,000. 2020, somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000. In recent months, barely a day has gone by without news of a ransomware attack. By one estimate, American businesses, healthcare facilities, and organizations and state and local governments are projected to endure more than 65,000 ransomware attacks this year alone. This is a criminal business model that is spreading. If someone wants to commit an attack, they can easily purchase or lease ready-use ransomware. According to one expert, it's, quote, way too easy to get into this. Just hire it out. There's been an incredible commoditization of the entire process. And I'm concerned as well that ransomware criminals often operate with impunity in Russia and other nations. Those nations are unwilling to prosecute or pursue the evildoers. We need to attack this new reality. We need new protocols for preventing and responding to ransomware attacks. The President understands it. His administration is taking a whole-of-government approach to prevent, deter, and respond. They recently launched a cross-government task force to coordinate offensive and defensive measures against these attacks and to help businesses. The administration also launched StopRansomware.gov, a new website that provides one central location for ransomware resources. These efforts are welcome because when it comes to ransomware, it's not just our money that's at stake. It's sensitive information, a personal sense of security, and truthfully, our nation's security. It's a critical challenge. This committee will do its part to meet it, starting with today's hearing. Now I turn to my friend and ranking member, Chuck Grassley.